I moved to the Philippines about 6 months ago, excited to experience everything this archipelago had to offer. As an American, I thought I knew food. I grew up on burgers, fries, and cereal for breakfast. I had my fair share of pasta, pizza, and steak, and I was proud of my culinary flexibility. Then I landed in Manila, and the very first thing that happened completely shattered my preconceived notions about meals. It was lunchtime on my first day in Makati. I was invited by my neighbor, a cheerful woman named Aling Maria, to join her family for a meal. I thought it would be polite to bring something from my side, so I grabbed a small pack of cookies and some sparkling water. When I arrived, the smell hit me immediately. Rice was everywhere. It was piled high on the plate in front of me, steaming and soft, flanked by fried fish, vegetables, and, curiously, spaghetti. I raised an eyebrow. Spaghetti and rice? Together? I assumed it was some quirky fusion thing they were trying out. Aling Maria noticed my hesitation and laughed. "Ah, don't worry. Filipinos eat rice with everything. Even spaghetti," she said casually, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. My stomach churned with curiosity and a tiny bit of terror. How could rice, a food I considered a side dish, sit next to a pasta dish, which I also considered a carb, on the same plate without causing a culinary catastrophe? As I tentatively tried to combine a bite of spaghetti with rice, I realized it wasn't just edible, it was delicious. The sweetness of the spaghetti sauce, often laden with banana ketchup and hot dogs, somehow complemented the neutral fluffiness of the rice. I chewed slowly, trying to process this. Was this really happening? Was this combination culturally acceptable, even celebrated in the Philippines? The answer was yes, emphatically yes. By the end of my first week, I had witnessed the phenomena repeatedly. Breakfast often included garlic fried rice, eggs, and tapa, a cured meat. Lunch could be rice with fried fish, pork adobo, or spaghetti. Dinner might be exactly the same setup, sometimes with a fried egg on top, a tradition called tapsilog when paired with tapa, long silog with sweet sausages, or spam slog with, well, spam. I realized that rice wasn't just a food. It was a lifestyle, a constant presence at every meal, the silent, dependable partner that could elevate almost anything on your plate. Curiosity got the better of me, and I started asking questions. The answer I got over and over again was the same. Rice is life. My friend Marco, a college student in Cebu, explained it with a grin. Rice fills you up. It's cheap, it's easy to cook, and it goes with everything. You can have fish, chicken, vegetables, spaghetti, even pizza sometimes, and rice will make it better. I tried to digest this logic. Back home, I might have thought rice and pizza were a crime against the digestive system, but here it made perfect sense. I was lucky enough to travel beyond Manila, exploring small towns, bustling cities, and remote provinces. Everywhere I went, rice dominated the table. In Vegan, I watched a street vendor serve sticky rice alongside grilled pork skewers. In Davao, I attended a family fiesta where mountains of rice were placed in front of every guest, alongside trays of lechon, sinigang, and a surprisingly sweet spaghetti. Even in Bohol, a tropical paradise with pristine beaches, rice was still the center of every meal. I began to realize that this wasn't just a habit. It was a national obsession ingrained into the culture itself. The more I observed, the more I noticed subtle variations in how rice was served. There was plain steamed rice, which seemed to be the default. Garlic fried rice, often eaten at breakfast. And sticky rice, used for desserts and festive occasions. Sometimes rice would be molded into shapes, or served with a tiny pinch of salt on top. It was versatile, forgiving, and the perfect canvas for Filipino culinary creativity. What struck me most was how Filipinos approached their meals with rice as the unifying thread. It wasn't just about filling the stomach. It was about comfort, identity, and practicality. I saw children insisting on rice before they would even try the other dishes. Elderly neighbors quietly scooping spoonfuls of plain rice before savoring the meat. And even office workers who brought thermos containers of rice to accompany their packed lunch of noodles or fried chicken. In a way, rice was the silent hero of every meal, the thread that held the diverse flavors of the Philippines together. One evening, I decided to put my new knowledge to the test. I invited some Filipino friends over for dinner and attempted to cook a fusion meal. I made spaghetti, thinking it would be purely Italian-American, but then, remembering the lessons I had learned, I served it with a generous side of garlic fried rice. My friends stared at me, and for a moment I feared I had crossed some cultural line. Then they laughed, clapped their hands, and dug in. The combination was an immediate hit. They explained that the rice balanced the sweetness of the spaghetti, and in true Filipino fashion, it made the meal feel complete. I had come full circle, my skepticism replaced by admiration and delight. I also started to notice how rice influenced eating habits beyond the plate. Portions were generally bigger, and meals were meant to be hearty and shared. Rice, being inexpensive and filling, allowed families to eat abundantly without worrying about cost. It fostered communal dining and a sense of generosity. At family gatherings, large trays of rice were always refilled without question, signaling hospitality and care. Even at roadside eateries, a small serving of rice could turn a few skewers of meat into a satisfying meal. Interestingly, rice also seemed to influence the Filipino sense of taste. The neutral flavor of rice acted as a palate cleanser, allowing stronger flavors like adobo, sinigang, or sweet spaghetti sauce to shine without being overpowering. I realized that without rice, the balance of flavors would feel incomplete. The texture, the subtle sweetness, and the comforting familiarity of rice made almost any dish approachable, even to someone like me who grew up eating mostly wheat and potatoes. During my travels, I began to ask more questions about the historical roots of rice in the Philippines. I learned that rice cultivation has been part of Filipino life for thousands of years. It shaped not only meals, but also festivals, rituals, and local economies. In many provinces, rice terraces and paddies are landmarks, symbols of hard work and tradition. Rice is woven into the national identity in a way that meat or noodles never could be. It was not just food. It was culture, history, and pride. One afternoon, while exploring a small town in Ilocos Norte, I witnessed a local school lunch. Children eagerly opened their lunch boxes, which always contained rice, no matter what else was inside. Some had fish, others had chicken or vegetables, but rice was present, constant, and comforting. I realized that from a young age, Filipinos are taught to see rice not just as food, but as a companion, a necessity, a friend. By comparison, in my home country, children might get cereal, toast, or sandwiches, and rice was often absent, only appearing occasionally in ethnic restaurants or special meals. It wasn't just quantity that mattered, either it was ritual. In many homes, the first scoop of rice goes to the elders or heads of the family. Meals are started only after rice is served, and many Filipinos feel incomplete without it. Even when I dined alone, I found myself instinctively reaching for rice first, a subtle adaptation to the rhythm of life here. The influence of rice extended beyond nutrition. It shaped behavior, manners, and expectations. Of course, not all experiences were easy for me. I still struggled with the sheer volume of rice consumed daily. Portions could be enormous, and sometimes the combination of rice with pasta or even pizza seemed excessive. But over time, I came to appreciate the logic. Rice is cheap, versatile, filling, and culturally significant. It allows for creativity in pairing flavors and ensures that no meal is ever truly meager. Even as an outsider, I began to understand that rice is more than food. It is a statement about Filipino identity and values. By the end of my 6 months in the Philippines, I had not only eaten rice with spaghetti multiple times, but also embraced it wholeheartedly. I tried rice with hot dogs, with ketchup-laden spaghetti, with fried eggs, and even with leftover pizza. Each time, it surprised me how well it worked, and each time, I appreciated the Filipino approach to food a little more. I started to notice little details. The way a mound of rice is carefully shaped on a plate, the satisfaction of mixing rice with a bit of meat and sauce, the comforting familiarity of its texture and flavor. I realized that the phenomenon of eating rice with everything is not random or humorous coincidence. It is practical, cultural, and deeply human. Rice brings people together, fills bellies, balances flavors, and preserves traditions. It is cheap yet priceless, humble yet central to identity. It connects generations and communities, turning even the simplest meal into a meaningful experience. On my last day in Manila, before a brief trip to Cebu, I visited a small local cafe that served spaghetti and rice side by side, just like countless other places I'd been. I smiled, realizing how far I had come. 6 months ago, I would have looked at this combination with horror. Now I reached for my spoon, mixed a little rice with spaghetti, and took a bite, savoring the comforting harmony. I laughed quietly to myself, thinking how funny and wonderful it was that such a simple food could teach me so much about a culture, a people, and the warmth of shared meals. As an American living in the Philippines, I came to understand that rice is more than a carbohydrate. It is the heart of every meal. It is the silent companion, the ever-present thread that ties together flavors, traditions, and communities. From morning to night, in homes, restaurants, and street stalls, rice is there, steady, dependable, and endlessly versatile. And now I eat it with everything, even spaghetti, knowing that it is not strange, but profoundly Filipino. Rice has taught me patience, humility, and the joy of shared experiences. It has taught me that food is never just about sustenance. It is about connection, identity, and comfort. It has taught me to laugh at my own preconceptions and to embrace new ways of living. Most importantly, rice has taught me that sometimes the simplest things are the most essential. So, why do Filipinos eat rice with everything, even spaghetti? The answer is simple: because it works, it satisfies, it unites, and it delights. It is tradition and practicality rolled into every fluffy grain. It is a daily ritual that shapes culture and creates memories. And for me, a blonde American woman who came to the Philippines thinking she knew food, it has become a beloved, comforting, and slightly funny part of my everyday life.